Hey there, back again, going to answer another question. If you haven't submitted your own, yoganatomy.com/my question, and go ahead and give me a question and I'll do my best to get it answered for you. This month's question is from Lex Fry. Hi David, looking forward to your online courses. Oh, I didn't say anything about my courses yet. I do have some online courses coming out. You'll find those at my.yoganatomy.com if you're interested. Anyway, she's looking forward to them when they're ready. There's a couple of them ready already. She's already applying stuff from my book. Oh, yeah, the book. Don't forget the book. And anyway, so much to think about in the book. There is a lot to think about in that book. All right. I'm teaching 10 classes a week at a local liberal arts college, including 2 classes a week specifically oriented towards college athletes. This semester, I seem to have a number of student athletes with diagnosed or suggested hip labrum tears, causing a fair amount of pain and limitations in their athletic training and performance. In each case, I'm finding very tight psoas on affected side, but lots of impingement to stretching. Would love to learn more about this area of the hip and how it also impacts the surrounding muscles and tissues with inflammation. Finding this in lacrosse players, soccer players, and rowers mostly. Any advice for working around with this issue and developing a practice? All right. Wow. Labrum tears, getting very popular out there in the yoga community. You're dealing with a different community, of course. But, wow, good question and timely. I've had a couple of emails in the last month about labral tears. So I wouldn't say I'm done with my own research on the topic of labral tears relative to yoga, but a theme seems to be emerging regarding labral tears happening in yoga practice specifically, and then I'll get more to your questions. What I can see so far is that there's almost always an underlying hip shape that exists. Sometimes it's related to the positioning of the socket in the pelvis or angle of the femur and the way that it connects in, but usually that's there first. Maybe the person has done a lot of impactful type of activities, like you're talking about soccer players, lacrosse players, or rowers who are doing really repetitive movements at their hip joint. I'm going to guess that most of them, probably there's something specific going on in their hip joints before this, because there's lots of people who do all of these activities and don't end up with labral tears. So keep that in mind. Just like the majority of people do yoga but don't get labral tears. So probably your own bone shape is partly to play into this. So it's hard to know what that is or what's lying underneath the skin. Because we don't have x-ray eyes. So it's hard to know ahead of time. What seems to cause it in yoga is compressing the hip joint, so fully flexed and then adding on adduction. However, I know people that it's happened to them going in the complete opposite direction, which is external rotation, like doing leg behind head, which is really deep external rotation of the hip joint. So either way, it seems to be at the extreme ends of that range of motion, either internal or external. So keep that in mind. And what I would say is if these students are already dealing with it, maybe avoid full hip flexion on those sides and see how that goes. With this kind of group, you're probably not doing any kind of leg behind head work anyway, so I wouldn't worry about that. Once the inflammation is in there, basically you just need to back off of everything until the inflammation calms down, because otherwise you keep inflaming it. And something else that happens is calcium is usually sent to places of inflammation in the body. It's one of the mechanisms that we reduce inflammation. And so this is sometimes how bone spurs and nodules start forming on the bone. So keeping something inflamed is not really a great idea from an anatomical point of view. So anyway, I don't think the fact that there's an inability to stretch in this particular population, Lex, is probably more indicative of the muscles kind of shutting down, not shutting down, I guess, not literally shutting down, but tightening up, splinting the area, trying to prevent a certain amount of movement because the body's kind of sensing that that kind of movement is going to add to the inflammation and or the injury, so it stops doing that. Not so dissimilar than if you had a car accident and you went through a whiplash and your neck muscles get tight. You know, the muscles splint down, keep your head from moving so you don't add on to the existing injury. That's probably the real reason why you're having a hard time stretching these areas for them. All right, I hope that gave you a little bit of food for thought. And those of you on the labral tear thing with yoga, go get it checked out and know what you're dealing with so you can make really good decisions about how you want to proceed forward with your yoga practice. All right, if you've got another question, throw it at me, yoganatomy.com/my question.